الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد الصادق الأمين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله الطاهرين الطيبين وعلى أصحابه أجمعين وعلى أزواجه أمهات المؤمنين وعلى ذريته إلى يوم الدين. سبحانك اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا اللهم علما وعملا متقبلا آمين يا رب العالمين. بالإسناد المتصل إلى الإمام أبي بكر al-Ajurri محمد بن الحسين المكي رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا به وبكم آمين. قال في كتابه الغرباء من المؤمنين. We continue with the book of Imam Abu Bakr al-Ajurri, may Allah have mercy on him, the strangers of the believers. قال الراوي أخبرنا محمد يعني الأجري قال حدثني أبو القاسم عبد الله بن محمد العطاشي المقرئ قال حدثني إبراهيم بن عبد الله بن الجنيد قال حدثني محمد بن الحسين البرجلاني قال حدثني محمد بن أبي عبد الله الخزاعي قال حدثني رجل من أهل الشام. A man from Syro-Palestine narrated to me. قال صاحبني رجل من النصارى في بعض الطريق. For part of the way, a man from among the Christians kept company with me. فقلت أين تريد? I said, where are you going? فقال أريد راهبا ها هنا أقتبس من علمه. He said, I want to see a certain monk right here to get some of his knowledge. قلت أجيء معك؟ قال إن شئت. I said, shall I go with you? He said, if you like. قال فأتينا على كهف جبل في ناحية بعيدة عن طريق الناس. So he said, we reached a cave of a mountain in a far corner away from the, or in a far place away from the path of the people. قال فوقف النصراني فنادى بأعلى صوته. So the Christian stood up and he called out at the top of his lungs, يا معلم الخير, O teacher of goodness, أتيتك لأقتبس من علمك خيرا. I came in order to obtain of your knowledge goodness. فعلمني, so teach me. نفعك الله بعلمك. May Allah benefit you with your knowledge. قال فهتف به هاتف من داخل الكهف. So a caller called out to him from inside the cave, أيها السائل عن سبل المنافع. O questioner about the paths of benefits. تيقظ حين يغفل الجاهلون عن أنفسهم. Be wakeful and aware at the time that the ignorant ones are heedless about their own souls. قال فجلس النصراني يبكي. So the Christian sat down and started weeping. وقال ما أراه إلا مريضا. He said, I do not think other than he is ill. وإني لأخاف أن يكون قد دنا أجله. And verily I indeed fear that his end of life has become near. وما أرى, or وما أرى, is that what you have? What's the difference between أرى and أرى? Ara is with the eyesight. Ura is with the insight, or with the estimation, with the conjecture. يعني you could translate it, I think. وما أرى أن نمطر إلا به. And I do not think that we will get rain except through him. So they use him to pray for rain on their behalf. قال فقلت فلو دخلنا عليه قال إن شئت. So the narrator said, I said, what if we entered to see him? He said, if you wish. قال فانحدرنا في الكهف. So we made our way down, because inhidar is to come down from a height, into the cave. حتى أتينا على موضع منه وعر. Is that what you have, or wa'ir? Wa'ar. I don't know. I don't have vocabulary. Okay, so until we reached a place of it that was very steep or difficult of access. فإذا بشيخ كبير قد سقط حاجباه على عينيه. And behold, there was an old man whose eyebrows were falling over his eyes. وإذا هو مكبوب على وجهه. And behold, he was prostrate on his face. وإذا هو يقول, as he is saying, or he was saying, لئن كنت أطلت جهدي في دار الدنيا. So he's addressing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's saying, verily, if you have made it long for me to toil and pain in the abode of this world, وتطيل شقائي في الآخرة, and if you will make long my misery in the hereafter, لقد أمهلتني وأسقطتني من عينيك. Or you have لقد وأمهلتني. لقد أمهلتني أهملتني. نعم. And if you make long my misery in the hereafter, then you have certainly abandoned me, and you have made me fall away from your eyes, or from your gaze. أيها الكريم, O most generous one. Yani, if you make me live long in this life, and then only to not grant me paradise in the next, then I'm the biggest loser. ثم قال فسلمنا عليه فرفع رأسه فإذا دموعه قد بلت الأرض منها. Then he said, we greeted him, and he raised his head, and behold, his tears had made wet the earth from them. فقال ما أدخلكم علي. What is the reason that brought you in to see me? ألم تكن الأرض لكم واسعة. Wasn't the earth vast enough for you? وأهلها لكم أناسا. And its people are friendly enough for you to go and see instead of me. فلما رأيت من عقله ما رأيت. So when I saw that he possessed intelligence, قلت والله إني لأرغب بعقلك عن النار. I said, I swear by Allah, I desire for your intelligence to be spared hellfire. You see, an here you bring in the verb that goes with it in order to say the sense of avoiding, because an is followed by an-nar, anin-nar, and he is swearing that he desires, so he could not be desiring other than avoidance of hellfire. And so we need to translate bi'aqlika in the correct way. So bi'aqlika, la arghabu bi'aqlika, yani by means of, or for the sake of, or because of, yani in other words, because of what I see of the intelligence you possess. You possess too much intelligence, as reflected from your dua and your question to us also, to end up in hellfire. So he wept. وقال, يعني that is a reference to what he himself was saying that he is afraid of in his prayer. You see. وقال ما الذي آيسني عندك من رحمة الله عز وجل التي وسعت كل شيء. He says to him, what is it that made me despair in your eyes, عندك, from the mercy of Allah Almighty, which has encompassed everything. You see the dialogue here? So there is double sense in everything. Yani the double sense of the Muslims' good wish for him, that verily I desire for you not to end up in hellfire. The first sense is that is in reference to the old man's prayer, that if I end up in hellfire, then I'll be the biggest loser. So it's just saying, inshallah, you will not. That's what I desire for you. But on the other hand, yani, since you are on a religion of error and associating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala other than him, then that is what I fear for you, and I do not wish it for you. And the question of the old man back to him also is, what is it that, yani I know what makes me despair. What makes me despair is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but myself, my sins, my fear of my sins. But what is it in your view that you are saying that I hope you will not end up in the fire? This is what I wish for you. Yani, in other words, as if the default situation is that the hellfire is awaiting. So that's the first meaning, and the second meaning is also about the difference in the faiths. See. Now, قال قلت إن رحمة الله لن ينالها غير أهل الإسلام دينا إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. So, والذي بيده نفسي, as the Prophet ﷺ was related to say that no one hears about me and does not believe in me except they will enter hellfire. They cannot enter paradise. And if Musa alayhi salam were in my time, he could do nothing else but to follow me. So that means that the previous dispensations are abrogated by the dispensation of Islam, which is the final dispensation, and so all the others before it are abrogated. And that is in addition to the previous scriptures being corrupted not from beginning to end, but corrupted. See? So whatever in them conforms is true and confirmed. Whatever conforms to the message of Tawheed. So then he is addressing the second meaning of the old man's reply, which is his question. He is replying to that. He is saying, well, if you do not follow, if you are not one of the Ahlul Islam, yani the people of surrender to Allah, the people of submission to Allah, the people of resignation of all of their affairs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and of all of their conviction and belief in Allah Most High. That is what Islam means. قال فبكى, he said that he wept. ثم قال ما أعرف غير الإسلام دينا. He said, I do not know anything other than submission as a religion. I do not know anything to count as faith except submission. قال فاشمأز النصراني. So the Christian who had brought him in became upset, disturbed by hearing the old man say that. Why? He didn't understand what he is saying. The old man is saying, I do not know anything other than submission to Allah, true submission, to count as real faith. And then all the young man heard was, I do not hear other than Islam with a capital I, as opposed to Christianity with a capital C, the titles, the names. So, and this is the case of 99.999% of people today. When they hear this and that, they think of only title and IDs. And if we think that, then we have forgotten the warning of the Prophet ﷺ, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ. Allah doesn't look at your images, doesn't care for your images. So this self-image of ourselves as I have this, I am that, and the rest of the catalogues of self-praise and self-exoneration and self-virtue and self-image and self-this and self-that, including my club membership in a club called fill in the blank among the faiths of the world. Like someone saying, I am Pisces. What does that mean, even? This is how meaningless it is. If this is what is meant, that you think you are going to bring that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Say, but what about inna dina inda Allah al-Islam and huwa alladhi sammakum al-muslimin? Yeah, but in what sense? In the sense that you use, in your usage of the term? No. But in the sense of the deepest reality, which is submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he is coming back to that submission. And yes, he is accepting the meaning of Islam in the time following the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which consists in saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Shahada. The witnessing. Just as before that time, it was wa ashhadu anna Isa Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and before that wa ashhadu anna Musa, Rasulullah, and before that, Ibrahim, and so on and so forth. So, that is the message of submission. And if people were running after that, then they would be all united in what they mean and what they say and what they do. They would see no clash, no mutual exclusion. They would see completion, complementarity and perfection in the seal of prophets and followership of him. Not contradiction, like this young man now who is now upset. He sees contradiction. فقال وقال يا معلم الخير, oh teacher of goodness, ترغب عن النصرانية ودين المسيح. Are you moving away and rejecting? ترغب عن. You see? So we see the difference between رغب في and رغب عن. So رغب في الشيء, to desire something. رغب عن الشيء, to desire the opposite of that thing. يعني to want away from something. So he's saying, are you wanting away from Christianity and the faith or the faith system of the Messiah? قال فأقبل عليه فقال. So he turned wholly to him and said, ثكلتك أمك. So ثكلتك أمك, meaning may your mother weep for your loss. Yani it's like a curse, but it can be used also as a blessing also, meaning, oh, have you lost yourself? Have you lost your mind? Don't you understand? Yani it's a way to draw attention dramatically, draw someone's attention in a dramatic way. أنا على دين المسيح. I am on the faith system of the Messiah. وهل كان للمسيح دين سوى الإسلام? Why did the Messiah ever have any faith system other than submission? Submission. And this is what we may say to every person who claims to be following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but who is not accepting Islam, who says, I believe in Allah, but I follow Musa alayhi salam, or I believe in Allah and I follow the Messiah alayhi salam. But we say to them the same thing that he said, why did Musa have any faith system other than submission to Allah? This is all that it is. So again, it is not some tribal system that you are asked to join. It is not some caste or some alien nation or some different race of being or nationality or anything like that. It is surrender to your Creator and my Creator. It is one surrender, the same, self-same that all the prophets practiced. قال إن الله تبارك وتعالى, verily the one God, may he be blessed and exalted, لما خلق خلقه, when he created his creatures, ارتضى لهم الإسلام دينا, he was well pleased for them as a faith system with submission. فمن رغب عن الإسلام فلا حظ له في الآخرة ولا نصيب. So whoever wants away from submission as a faith system, pure submission, nothing but, then a person who does not want that will not have any share or portion in the hereafter. And no matter what they call themselves. And the proof of that submission is not to just say and then refuse to do. It's not enough. And the message is for us included, yani. And if you cannot just say, we say to the Christians, for example, you cannot just say, oh, God is love. I know He will forgive me. I don't do anything, none of the obligations, and I don't stay away from any of the prohibitions. Then your actions belie your love. Your actions belie your claim of the knowledge of Allah's attribute. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, do follow my prophet, follow my example that I send you. But you refuse. The same thing with those who say, I follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I do not do what he says. Like for example, they do not pray. They will pray only when people are around. That's not what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. So they cannot say that they love Allah. قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Say, if you really love Allah, then you must follow me. That is the proof of your love. They do not follow the Prophet ﷺ, even less do they love him. Because if they loved him, that is even stronger than followership. Because it includes followership automatically. You love, you will follow. You will run after him. But he didn't yet ask for love. He just must at least follow. At least follow. Follow. But as for love, that it is more special. It is more special. And then love of the Prophet ﷺ, love of Allah. Allahumma inni as'aluka hubbaka wa as'aluka hubba man yuhibbuka. So I ask, oh Allah, for your love and for love of Prophet ﷺ. And all the prophets and all the awliya, they are the ones that love Allah. So I'm asking for their love as well. وَحُبَّ عَمَلٍ يُقَرِّبُنِي إِلَيْكَ. And the love of a deed, any deed that will bring me near to you. So there's deeds there. فَثَارَ النَّصْرَانِيُّ مُوَلِّيًا. And so the Christian boiled over and turning his back and walking away. فقلت انتظر حتى أخرج معك. I said to him, wait, so that I can go out with you. فقال الراهب. At this the monk said, دعه. Leave him. فمن كتب عليه الشقاء لم يسعد أبدا. Whoever misery and wretchedness was foreordained for them, they shall never be happy. That means in Akhirah. قال قلت يرحمك الله اعتزلت الناس واغتربت في هذا الموضع. I said, may Allah have mercy on you. You isolated yourself from people, or isolated people from you, and you alienated yourself in this place. اغتربت يعني you made yourself a stranger in this place. قال فقال وأنت أي أخي And you, O my brother, فحيثما ظننت أنه أقرب لك إلى الله عز وجل فابتغي إلى ذلك سبيلا. Wherever you think that there is a nearer way for you to Allah, or there is a nearer spot for you to Allah. Yani for example, we know for sure that the house of Allah is a nearer spot to us, for us to Allah. So if the choice is that and the marketplace, of course the house of Allah is a better meeting, a better place. So but there majority of times or the cases it is less clear cut than this, but you have to make it sure, you have to decide also and judge. So wherever it is nearer for you to Allah, then seek that, seek a way to that, and try to go there. فَلَنْ يَجِدَ مُبْتَغُوهُ مِنْ غَيْرِهِ عِوَضًا. Because his seekers, yani those that seek him subhanahu wa ta'ala, will not find anything compensating for him other than him. You can have nothing in exchange. It will not be replacing him or compensating him. So it's either big gain or big loss. There's nothing in between. قال قلت فالمطعم. I said, what about food? Yani what about sustenance? قال أقل ذلك عند الحاجة إليه. He said, the least of that at the time of need for it. يعني as in the hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, كفى المرء لقيمات يقيم بها صلبه أو كما قال. يعني suffice a person a few morsels by which they shall straighten up their spine. And another hadith where he says that when you eat, do not fill your belly, but put only a third of food there, and a third for water, leave, and a third for air. Yani to rest the belly, and to not to affect the spirit also, because the states of the belly affects the spirit. No. And the Salaf al-Salih would say, we are a people who only ate when they were very hungry, and who only slept when they were extremely tired. So they did not eat for pleasure or sleep for pleasure, but only for necessity. The necessity. No. قال قلت فالقلة. I said, what is قلة? يعني what is the minimum? How do we define that? فقال إذا أردنا ذاك فنبت الأرض وقلوب الشجر. He said, if we want that, then the what grows, the vegetation that grows from the earth, and the hearts of trees. Subhanallah. So, yani, in other words, doing with very little, extremely little. You know? So he's saying, just eat from what you find in the wilderness, and just make the hollowed out trees your bed. Yani, it's a figure of speech for extreme simple living. Like Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam saying, speaking of himself, when he's saying this, the son of man has no place to rest his head. قال قلت أخرجك من هذا الموضع الوعر. Let me bring you out from this place that is so hard of access. فآتي بك أرض الريف والخصب or والخصب. And shall I bring you out and bring you to a place of greenery and countryside? قال فبكى, he wept. وقال إنما الخصب حيث يطاع الله عز وجل. He said, greenery is only wherever Allah is obeyed. وأنا شيخ كبير, and I'm an old man. وإنما أموت الآن ولا حاجة لي بالناس. And now I am about to die and I have no need for people. قال قلت أوصني بشيء أحفظه عنك. I said, give me an advise me something that I shall remember as coming from you. قال تفعل. قلت إن شاء الله تعالى. He said, you will do that? I said, if Allah wills. قال لا تدخرن عن نفسك من نفسك شيئا. He said, do not hoard up or save up from yourself, of yourself, anything. يعني do not spare yourself from yourself anything. ولا تؤثرن بحظك من الناس أحدا. And do not prefer of people anyone to have your own share instead of you. وارع حدود الله عز وجل عند مغالبة الهوى. And observe the boundaries of Allah Most High at the time that proclivities and inclinations tend to overcome. وتنسم إلى محابه وإن صعب عليك المرتقى. And aspire to the things that He loves, even if it is difficult for you to rise up. وأخرى أقولها لك جماعا. And another thing I will say to you which gathers up everything. لا ترد بفعلك غيره والسلام عليك. Do not want by your actions anything other than Him, and peace be upon you. ثم أكب على وجهه وهو يبكي وانصرفت. Then he prostrated on his face as he was weeping, and I walked away. The only praiseworthy sense is your share of your presence with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani don't give that up for the sake of any of the people. Because this is what he himself did. He preferred the presence with Allah and company of Allah to the company of all people, even at the cost of isolating himself, losing all comforts of dunya, but this way he gains the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is one of the reports, like the previous one also, of the ascetics that are the strangers in this life and truly alien to their fellow human beings, because they live in a way that no one else can follow. Very exceptional and very devoted and dedicated to the divine presence. The way that, as we mentioned, Sufyan al-Thawri described the way of Dawood al-Ta'i when he saw it. And the way of those people went into the desert with nothing in their pockets and no provision of food, but relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Dhunnun al-Misri, who was mentioned in the previous story, and others like that. Rahimahumullah ta'ala, amin. أخبرنا محمد بن الحسين عن الأجري قال سمعت أبا بكر ابن أبي الطيب رحمه الله يقول بلغنا عن عبد الله بن الفرج العابدي أنه قال احتجت إلى صانع يصنع لي شيئا من أمر اللوزجاريين. I was in need at one point of someone to make something or do something for me, help me out with something, whom I could hire for the day or for a while. فأتيت السوق, so I came to the marketplace. فجعلت أرمق الصناع, and I started examining the manufacturers and the craftspeople. فإذا في أواخرهم شاب مصفر, and among the last of them, the farthest of them, most remote and least noticeable of them, there was a young man who was very pale. بين يديه زبيل, and in his hands there was some kind of either a bag or utensil. كبير ومر, big and solid looking, strong. ذو مرة, right? The Holy Quran, possessor of strength in Surah An-Najm. So marrun is the adjective from that. وعليه جبة صوف ومئزر صوف, wearing a cloak of wool and a waist wrap of wool also. فقلت له تعمل؟ قال نعم. قلت بكم؟ قال بدرهم ودانق. Will you work for me? He said yes. I said for how much? He said 1 dirham and a penny. دانق, the smallest measure of payment. فقلت له قم حتى تعمل. قال على شريطة. قلت ما هي؟ So I said, okay, get up so that you can work for me. He said, but on one condition. I said, what is it? قال إذا كان وقت الظهر وأذن المؤذن خرجت فتطهرت وصليت في المسجد جماعة ثم رجعت فإذا كان وقت العصر فكذلك. That when the muezzin calls for the prayer of Zuhr, I go out, I wash myself, I go to the mosque, and I pray in congregation, and then I come back. And when it's time for Asr, the same thing. قلت نعم. فقام معي فجئنا المنزل فوافقته على ما ينقله من موضع إلى موضع فشد وسطه وجعل يعمل ولا يكلمني بشيء حتى أذن المؤذن للظهر. So I said yes. So he got up with me and we went to the house, and I accompanied him, or I did with him, I showed him what he would be carrying from one place to another, or I did it with him. So he just tied up his waist. Yani, in other words, it's as if saying he tucked up his izar so that he could move more easily with more energy, and he went to work without saying anything to me until the muezzin called for the prayer of Zuhr. فقال يا عبد الله قد أذن المؤذن قلت شأنك فخرج فصلى. So he said, "Oh, servant of Allah, the muezzin has called for the prayer," and said, "Go to your need." So he went out and prayed. فلما رجع عمل أيضا عملا جيدا إلى العصر. So when he came back, he worked hard again until عصر. فلما أذن المؤذن قال لي يا عبد الله قد أذن المؤذن قلت شأنك فخرج فصلى العصر ثم رجع. Same thing for عصر. ثم رجع فلم يزل يعمل إلى آخر النهار فوزنت له أجرته وانصرف. And he kept working until the end of the day, and so I weighed for him his wage, and then he left. So in those days, 1 dirham was like a tenth of a dinar of gold, so it had high value. فلما كان بعد أيام احتجنا إلى عمل فقالت لي زوجتي اطلب لنا ذلك الصانع الشاب فإنه قد نصحنا في عملنا. So a few days later we needed work again, someone to work for us again. So my wife said to me, seek that one, the young worker, because he verily was faithful to us in his work. نصحنا. فجئت السوق. So I came to the marketplace فلم أره فسألت عنه فقالوا تسأل عن ذاك المصفر المشؤوم الذي لا نراه إلا من سبت إلى سبت. So I couldn't see him. I asked about him. They said, you are asking about that yani bad luck or unfortunate yellow looking one whom we do not see except from one Sabbath day to the next Sabbath day. لا يجلس إلا وحده في آخر الناس. He doesn't sit except by himself at the very end of where the people are. قال فانصرفت. So I left. فلما كان يوم السبت أتيت السوق. So this marketplace apparently is only active on the day of the Sabbath, which means what? This is a Muslim souk, right? It's a Muslim souk. And in Morocco, when we visited, there was one such souk also, and they called it Souk al-Sabt. Souk al-Sabt. فصادفته فقلت له. So I happened to meet him. فقلت له, I said to him, تعمل, will you work? قال قد عرفت الأجرة والشرط. you know the price, the wage and the condition. قلت أستخير الله تعالى. I said I am consulting Allah, I shall consult Allah, meaning يعني I am trusting in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يعني come. فقام فعمل على النحو الذي كان عمل. So he got up and worked in the same fashion that he had worked. قال فلما وزنت له الأجرة زدته فأبى أن يأخذ الزيادة. So when I weighed for him the wage, I gave him a little more, but he refused to take the addition. فألححت عليه, I insisted that he should. فضجر وتركني ومضى, but he got exasperated and he left me and went. فغمني ذلك, and that made me anxious. فاتبعته وأدركته وداريته حتى أخذ أجرته فقط. So I followed him, I caught up with him, and I humored him until he took nothing but the wage agreed upon. فلما كان بعد مدة احتجنا أيضا إليه فمضيت في يوم السبت فلم أصادفه فسألت عنه فقيل لي هو عليل. So a few days later again we needed someone to work for us, and I went on the day of the Sabbath and I could not find him, and I asked about him, and it was said to me he is ill. فقال لي من يخبر أمره إنما كان يجيء إلى السوق من سبت إلى سبت يعمل بدرهم ودانق يتقوت كل يوم بدانق وقد مرض. So someone who had news of him said to me he used to come to the marketplace every Sabbath day to the next Sabbath day and work for one dirham and a daniq, and he would eat whatever he needed to eat for the daniq, for one daniq. And now he got sick. فسألت عن منزله فأتيته وهو في بيت عجوز فقلت لها هنا الشاب الرزجاري. So I asked about his place of residence, and I came to it, and he was in the house of an old woman. So I asked her, is here where the young man for hire lives? فقالت هو عليل منذ أيام, he is sick since several days, she said. فدخلت عليه فوجدته لم به. What do you have? لما به? What do you have? لما? لم به. لم به without alif. So I went in to see him, and I found him, and he was ailing. لم به. So we saw that expression in the Kitab al-Muhtadarin of Ibn Abi Dunya, the book of the dying. وتحت رأسه لبنة, and under his head there was a brick. That was his pillow. فسلمت عليه. So I greeted him. وقلت لك حاجة؟ قال نعم إن قبلت. I said to him, do you have any need? He said, yes, if you accept. قلت أقبل إن شاء الله تعالى. I said, if Allah wills, I shall accept. قال إذا أنا مت فبيع هذا المر واغسل جبة هذه الصوف. If I die, then sell this utensil and wash my coat that you see here, the woolen one, وهذا المئزر, and this waist wrap, وكفني بهما, and just shroud me in them. وافتق جيب الجبة فإن فيها خاتما فخذه, and just unstitch the hem or the pockets of the inner pocket of the coat, and you'll find in it a ring, so take it. ثم انظر يوم يركب هارون الرشيد الخليفة فقف له في موضع يراك فكلمه, and then wait for the day, because انظر, just like in the Quran, can have the meaning of look and also wait, انتظر. So انظر, in the sense of انتظر, we can translate it as wait and see, or look for until you find the day that Harun al-Rashid, the caliph, will be riding out with his entourage. فَقِفْ لَهُ فِي مَوْضِعٍ يَرَاكَ, so stop for him in a place where he shall see you, and speak to him. وَأَرِهِ الْخَاتَمَ فَإِنَّهُ سَيَدْعُو بِكَ, and show him, speak to him and show him the ring, then he will call you over to his side. So the ring will be something that Harun al-Rashid is supposed to recognize. فَسَلِّمْ إِلَيْهِ الْخَاتَمَ وَلَا يَكُونُ هَذَا إِلَّا بَعْدَ دَفْنِي قُلْتُ نَعَمْ. So give him the ring, and let not that be until after I am buried. I said yes. فلما مات فعلت به ما أمرني ثم نظرت اليوم الذي يركب فيه الرشيد فجلست له على الطريق فلما مر ناديته يا أمير المؤمنين لك عندي وديعة ولوحت بالخاتم فأمر بي فأخذت وحملت حتى دخل إلى داره ثم دعاني. So after he died, I did what he ordered me, and then I waited and looked for the day when Harun al-Rashid would be riding, and I sat waiting for him on the road, and then when he passed by, I called him and I said, "O commander of the believers, I have a trust that was entrusted to me for you." And I showed him in full sight the ring, and so he ordered me to come over, and so I was taken and was conveyed or carried until he entered his house, and then he called me وَنَحَّى جَمِيعَ مَنْ عِنْدَهُ, and he dismissed everyone else that was in his presence. وَقَالَ لِمَنْ أَنْتَ, and he said to me, "Who are you?" فحدثته قصة الشاب فجعل يبكي حتى رحمته. And I told him the story of the young man, and he started weeping until I felt sorry for him, and I invoked mercy for him. فلما أنس إلي. So Harun al-Rashid, he was soft-hearted when it came to spiritual matters, and he would weep. You know the story of when he visited Bishr al-Hafi, I think it was Bishr al-Hafi, and he had with him his vizier, and they knocked on the door of Bishr al-Hafi, and he said, who is at my door? And he said, "Oh Bishr, open the door for Amir al-Mu'mineen, he is here at your door." And I said, what does Amir al-Mu'mineen want with Bishr al-Hafi? You must have the wrong address. He didn't want to open. But he insisted and insisted. He said, "All right, let me turn off the light." Not turn on. let me turn off, blow out the candle. Because I do not see people. So he blew out the candle and opened the door, and they came in groping in order not to fall and to see, oh, Bishr, why did you turn off the candle? Amir al-Mu'minin is here, and then we can't find our way in. And so he said, oh, what a soft hand Amir al-Mu'minin has. How sad. And so the vizier said, why are you saying that? He said, it is sad that the fire should eat it. Look how tough he was. And then the vizier said, oh Bishr, you have made the commander of the believers cry. He is weeping. And he came to visit you for nasiha, and you are breaking his heart. So he said, state your business, O Amir al-Mu'minin. Amir al-Mu'minin said, Bishr, I just came asking for your dua. And so he gave him advice, and he made dua for him. And then Harun said to him, Bishr, take this. This is from my mother's bequest to me, what she left to me. It is not from anything suspicious. So please accept it. And gave him a pouch of gold. And Bishr said, oh, Amir al-Mu'minin, you come in the night and you ask me to give you what is beneficial, and I made dua for you, and then in exchange you give me the gold of dunya. Is this how you repay me? And so he said, oh, there is no way with you, with you, the people of spiritual presence, to address you. Everything is wrong that I do. So he said, no, you did right. You did your best. And he soothed him like that, and then they left. When he addressed the vizier, he said, what do you want, Haman? Like that. He said, are you calling me Haman? You're calling me Haman, that means that you're calling Amir al-Mu'minin Fir'aun. So this story is in Tabaqat al-Awliya of Ibn al-Mulaqqin, or the Tabaqat al-Sufya of al-Sulami, one of the two. So subhanallah, yet he loved to be with the Sufis and the Awliya, Harun al-Rashid. So فَلَمَّا أَنِسَ إِلَيَّ, so when he felt comfortable with me, قُلْتُ يَا أَمِيرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ مَنْ هُوَ مِنْكَ, oh commander of the believers, who is he to you? قَالَ إِبْنِي, my son is my son. Because their Amir al-Mu'minin's mother, and she was very spiritual. She is the one who brought back from the descendants of Aqil ibn Abdul Muttalib the house of the Holy Prophet ﷺ in Mecca, and she turned it into a mosque. Remember when the Prophet ﷺ conquered Mecca, and Al-Abbas, his uncle, said, where are you going to stay, Ya Rasulullah? He said, and did Aqil leave us anything? Did Aqil leave us anything? And he took everything. So he had no place to stay. And his house. So she, in her time, bought back that place. Lavishly. And she lavishly turned it into a mosque. And it was a mosque for a long time. Subhanallah. This is how the people of piety acted with the vestiges and relics of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, including the spaces where that touched the Prophet ﷺ, where he had lived or where he was born, and so forth. That's part of the history of the house of the Prophet ﷺ. You can follow it. It was always noble and distinguished and elevated until what happened. Subhanallah. So it turned out to be his son. قلت كيف صار إلى هذه الحال? How did he become like this? قال, he said, ولد لي قبل أن أبتلى بالخلافة. He was born to me before I was afflicted and tried with the caliphate. And this is the way that pious people speak of such a position. Like Sayyidina Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. He was of the Bani Umayyah and was the most pious of the Bani Umayyah. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. And Imam al-Shafi'i called him the fifth of the Khulafa al-Rashidin. فَنَشَأَ نُشُوءًا حَسَنًا. So he grew up very beautifully. وَتَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنِ, and learned the Quran. وَالْعِلْمِ, and the sacred science, knowledge. فَلَمَّا وُلِّيتُ الْخِلَافَةَ تَرَكَنِي. So when I was made the head of government with caliphate, he left me. وَلَمْ يَنَلْ مِنْ دُنْيَايَ شَيْئًا. And he did not take anything of my dunya for himself. فَدَفَعْتُ إِلَى أُمِّهِ هَذَا الْخَاتَمَ وَهُوَ يَاقُوتٌ. And so I gave to his mother this ring, which is pure ruby. وَيَسْوَى مَالًا كَثِيرًا, and it is very valuable. فَدَفَعْتُهُ إِلَيْهَا. So I gave it to her. وَقُلْتُ لَهَا تَدْفَعِينَ هَذَا إِلَيْهِ. So, يعني his wife. And I said, take this and give it to him. وَكَانَ بَرًّا بِأُمِّهِ. And he was extremely pious to his mother. بَرًّا لِأُمِّهِ. Extremely pious to his mother. Right? So, this is one of the attributes of some of the prophets in the Holy Quran. Sayyidina Isa, Sayyidina Yahya. And so he probably shared with them that trait, which is what? That he never married. Right? Because Sayyidina Isa سيدا وحصورا ونبيا من الصالحين. حصورا. What is حصورا? يعني celibate. And so was Sayyidina Yahya alayhi salam also. No. وتسألينه أن يكون معه فلعله أن يحتاج إليه يوما من الأيام فينتفع به. So he counted on his piety towards his mother for him to accept that from her, which he would not accept from him. That's one. And secondly, give it to her and ask him to keep it with him. Make sure that you ask him to keep it with him, because there might be a time, a day, that he might need it. Then he can benefit from it. وتوفيت أمه فما عرفت له خبرا إلا ما أخبرتني به أنت. Then his mother died, and I never heard again from him except the time that now you have come to me with news of him. ثم قال لي إذا كان الليل أخرج معي إلى قبره. Then he said to me, when it is night, then come out with me to his grave. Why night always? For his spiritual needs, he would come out at night, because he didn't want anyone to recognize him. He would go incognito, without his entourage, except one person maybe, like that. Like within the story of Bishr al-Hafi, but it was at night also. So he said, we will go to his grave. So come with me. فلما كان الليل خرج وحده معي يمشي حتى أتينا قبره فجلس إليه فبكى بكاء شديدا. So they came out. When it was night, they went to the grave, and then he sat there and he wept a long time or hard. فلما طلع الفجر قمنا. And when it was time for dawn, we got up. فرجع ثم قال لي تعاهدني في كل الأيام حتى أزور قبره. We came back, and then he said to me, will you come back and see me every day so that I may visit his grave? فكنت أتعاهده في الليل. So I would regularly go back to him at night. فنخرج حتى نزوره ثم يرجع. And then we would go out until we visited him, and then he would come back. قال عبد الله بن الفرج ولم أعلم أنه ابن الرشيد حتى أخبرني أنه ابنه أو كما قال ابن أبي الطيب. And the narrator said, and I never realized that it was the son of Harun al-Rashid until Harun al-Rashid himself told me. والله تعالى أعلم وأحكم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين.